Katipunan. News, insights, inspiration. Radyo Katipunan. Down from the hill and down to the world. Radyo Katipunan. The voice of the Blue Eagle.
Radyo, 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 katipunan. Radyo, katipunan. Radyo, katipunan. Radyo, 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 katipunan. Radyo, katipunan. Voice of the Blue Eagle, kami di mapipigil sa pagbabalitang tumpak at tama. Buhay atin sa loob, sa labas ng eskwela, ating ibibida lahat ng eskwela. Radyo, 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 katipunan. Radyo, 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 katipunan. Radyo, katipunan. Radyo, katipunan. Kawal ni Ignacio, katipunero sugod. Todo sa kayod, punong at tulong. Lipad na Blue Eagle, galing hiding at tigil. Blue and white, one big fight. Radyo, 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 katipunan. Radyo, 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 katipunan. Radyo, katipunan. Radyo, katipunan.
Jescom Music Ministry. Music that uplifts the soul. Follow jescom.ph on Spotify and Jescom Music on YouTube. We are also on iTunes and Deezer.
Kaibigan, alam mo na ba kung ano ang mga karaniwang sintomas ng COVID-19? Ito ay ang mga sumusunod: lagnat, pagkapagod, at dry cough. Habang sa ilan naman ay sipon at baradong ilong, sore throat o diarrhea. May ilan naman na wala pang sintomas, pero pwede pa rin nilang maipasa ang virus sa iba. Kung ikaw ay nasa mga lugar kung saan kumakalat ang COVID-19 o kaya may close contact sa mga taong kumpirmadong may COVID-19 o sa mga nag-aalaga sa kanila, ipagbigay alam ito sa health workers sa inyong barangay. COVID-19, kayang-kaya nating tapusin.
Radyo Katipunan is now online. See our live feed on facebook.com/radyo-katipunan. Check out our Instagram and our Twitter at Radyo Katipunan and subscribe to our YouTube channel at Radyo Katipunan FM for more exclusive content.
Katipunan.
To listen to music that uplifts the soul, follow jescom.ph on Spotify and Jescom Music on YouTube. Our music is also available on iTunes and Deezer.
Radyo Katipunan 87.9 FM.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please?
If it's entertainment you crave,
Catch us on
New Wave. Surfing through the latest on our shores.
every Wednesday from 5 to 6 p.m.
See you there.
Follow at Radyo Katipunan in our social media accounts on Facebook, Instagram, and on Twitter. All caps, mga Atinista! It's time to level up! Your top variety program showcasing the best in media and other fields. As we feature the most loved personalities and the best practices of what we truly refer to as Magis. Together with multi-awarded multimedia guru Mr. Noel Ferrer, let's all level up every Fridays from 3 to 6 p.m. here on Radyo Katipunan 87.9 FM. Good morning, Ateneo. Start your day right with your morning wake-up call. Good morning, Ateneo. Energize your day with the lively, funny, and lovely tandem of Mir de los Santos and Tats Kidlat. Catch the latest news and stories around the campus. Good morning, Ateneo! Your daily dose of radio chikahan, tawanan, kantahan, and kwentuhan. every morning from 9 to 10 a.m. Tuesdays to Fridays. Good morning, Ateneo. Your mornings will never be the same again.
Radyo, 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 katipunan. Radyo, katipunan. Radyo, katipunan. Radyo, katipunan. Radyo, katipunan. Sa Blue Eagle kami di mapipigil sa pagbabalitang tumpak at tama. Buhay atinista sa loob sa labas ng eskwela, ating ibibida lahat ng kwela. Radyo, 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 katipunan. Radyo, 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 katipunan. Radyo, katipunan. Katipunan. Kawal ni Ignacio, katipunero sugod, todo sa kayod, dunong at tulog. Lipat na Blue Eagle, galing giting nagigil. Blue and white, one big fight. Radyo, 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 katipunan. Radyo, 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 katipunan. Radyo, katipunan. Katipunan. Radyo, 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 katipunan. Radyo, katipunan.
Join Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle as he delivers to us the preachings of the Sunday's Gospel that's awe-inspiring, yet easy to understand and appreciate. Let us all listen to the Word of God here on The Word Exposed on Air, only on Radyo-Katipunan 87.9 FM. Radyo-Katipunan 87.9 FM. Rejoice, refresh, renew, and reflect. Join us for an hour of music that uplifts the soul. Listen to your favorite Jesuit music ministry artists. This is JMM Radio. JMM Radio. Get your day's dose of inspirational music. Tune in to JMM Radio every Wednesday from 1 to 2 p.m. Only here on Radyo-Katipunan 87.9 FM. Tara na't simulan ng inyong umaga sa mga magagandang refleksyon tungkol sa ating buhay at pananampalataya. Kasama sina Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle ng Manila, Father J. Boy Gonzales at Father Nono Alfonso ng Kapisanan ni Jesus, Father Cali Llamado ng Manila Cathedral, at Binibining Risa Singson Kaupeng ng Light of Jesus Community dito sa Kapit Pandasal sa Radyo-Katipunan 87.9 FM.
Radyo, 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 katipunan. Radyo, katipunan. Radyo, katipunan. Radyo, 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 katipunan. Radyo, 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 katipunan. The voice of the Blue Eagle, kami di mapipigil sa pagbabalitang tumpak at tama. Buhay atinista sa loob sa labas ng eskwela, ating ibibida lahat ng kwela. Radyo, 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 katipunan. Radyo, 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 katipunan. Radyo, katipunan. Radyo, katipunan. Kawal ni Ignacio, katipunero sugod, todo sa kayod, tunong at tulong.
Meron? Ano nga ba ang meron? Paano nga bang mabuhay ng tapat sa meron? Don't you wish you can relive your philo classes? The terror teachers? The terrible oral exams? Or the even terrifying but liberating and life-changing aha moments? Lundagin mo, Beybeh! Here's your chance! Lundagin mo, Beybeh! Kasama ang mga pilosopong sina Jovi Miroy at Ron Capinding. Lundagin mo, Beybeh! Leaping upward, leaping forward. Lundagin mo, Beybeh! Leaping to greater heights, to greater wisdom, to greater magis. Lundag na, Ateneo!
Naku.
Okay, magandang hapon po sa inyong lahat. Magandang hapon po sa amin mga masugid tagapakinig. Tingnan niyo,
andun na naman sila.
Si Erwin Isaac Vega Villamor, AMDG daw. May mga avid listeners tayo. 3 taon na yata tayo na ganito. So magandang hapon po sa inyong lahat. Ito naman po ay isang Lunes ng hapon. Pinili namin ng Lunes para kahit manic Monday.
Naka-stretching ka na ba, Sir Ron?
Hindi pa. Ngayon lang. So, ngayon ay ika-9 ng Agosto at isa sa mga gusto nating ipagdiwang ngayon at alalahanin ngayon ay ang sa Agosto ba ang dami nating celebration ngayon. May Miroy Day, nandito rin yata ay araw ng Idil-Adha, di ba? At meron din tayong maraming holiday, meron din Quezon City Day, at meron ding National Heroes Day sa bandang dulo ng buwan. Pero isang inaangkin talaga ngayon ng educational system, hindi naman natin kailangan sundin, no? Pero gusto natin sundin ngayon, ay ang pagdiriwang ng buwan ng Wika. Nung nakaraang, ano bang paksa natin nung nakaraang linggo sa Jovi? Naalala mo ba?
Isang linggo?
Oo.
Kahapon lang, hindi ko matandaan eh.
Pero alam ko hindi pa buwan ng Wika eh. Ang alam ko, hindi pa.
Meron pa tayong nung...
Father Ferios. Because it's Father Ferios anniversary. At yun na nga, Ferrying Ferios. So yun ang atin. So sumagot tayo ng mga tanong na parang palagay natin ano kayang sasabihin dyan ni Father Ferios. At hindi lang tayo ang nag-aambag noon. Mga nakikinig sa atin.
Alam mo ba, hindi maigi ang lagay ng butihing pari natin. Siya ay may... Meron siyang karamdaman ngayon.
Alam ko na nasa infirmary naman siya for ng matagal na panahon na, pero meron pang komplikasyon na inaalagaan niya ngayon. So sa kay Father Ferios po, ang dalangin namin sana ay marausan niya tulad ng maraming narausan na niya sa buhay itong kanyang pinagdaraan ng karamdaman ngayon. Father Ferios, mabuhay po kayo at pagpapala. So yun na nga, dahil nag-Father Ferios tayo ng nakaraang linggo, August 2, gusto natin huwag makaligtaan ngayon ay itong pagdiribang ng ating buwan ng Wika. At alam mo, ako ay Filipino subject area teacher, Sir Jovi. Pero ang laki-laki ng mga tanong ko tungkol sa Wika. Kahit sa mismong Filipino at mismo dun sa lengguwahe in general.
Pero yung tinuturo mo ngayon, hindi yan yung dati mo nang tinuturo bago ka naging assistant principal.
Ito pa rin eh. Yung nga lang, kasi bago ako naging assistant principal, ang high school noon na hindi pa junior high school, senior high school. So I was teaching 13-year-old to 17-year-old students. Ngayon, parang naging junior high school kami, parang bumata ng mga 1-2 taon. So parang medyo kailangan kong baguhin ang pagtuturo, lalo na nasa upper grade levels ako nung high school. Ngayon, junior high school, nasa lower pa. So it's not the age I've encountered ever. So mga 12 years old to. So nakikita ko ang sarili ko na kailangan ko mas dahan-dahanin, alalayan, mas makinig sa kanila. So yun nga, ibig sabihin, sir, kahit sabihin ko nga, hindi ko minsan maglilinggo ng Wika. Tapos di mo alam kung Filipino ba yon pag sinabing Wika.
Sila ng Wika?
Ay mga iba-ibang wika ng Pilipinas. So, buwan ng Wika, hindi buwan ng Pilipino.
Ang English ba kasama sa pambansang wika?
Yes, kasama. Good afternoon po sa inyong lahat. Baka po nagtataka yung inyong mga viewers kung sino po ako. Kasi 13 minutes na. Hindi pa rin ako
Pakilala mo na siya.
singit. Pero
Okay,
to
yun nga.
answer
Okay,
Jovi's
yes.
question, yes, kasama ang English sa mga wika ng Philippines, ng ating bayan. Yes. Good afternoon po sa inyong lahat.
Yun nga.
Ako po si Devi. Mabuting kaibigan ni Ron, kababata ni Ron. At saka colleague naman, Nax colleague ni Sir Jovi.
Kasi mas bata ako sa inyo.
Sos. Ako na po ang nag-introduce sa sarili ko kasi.
Bago ko naging kababata at bago ko naging colleague, kaibigan at kababata yan si Devi, paghanga muna niya ako. Wow.
Yes. Kailangan talaga itong portion na ito. Sige.
So hindi ko pa napapakilala. Sabi ko kanina, nalilito talaga ako. Wala kami ibang maisip na imbitahan ngayon para pag-usapan tong lengguwahe at wika, kundi si ang aming panauhin ngayon. Kasi nga pati, ano ba yung Filipino? Isa ba siyang conglomerate ng maraming wika at anong uri siya? Pati ba English kasali dyan at medyo sinasagot na ng dahan-dahan ng ating panauhin? Papakilala ko po siya. Unahin ko na yung pangalan para kasi buong palabas naman natin ay makikilala pa natin siya. Siya po ay si Devi Ignacio Paez. Ang alam ko sa kanya ay isa siya sa, may katawag kami dito, Devi, na aluminaries.
Wow! Anong ibig sabihin ng aluminaries? Anong ibig sabihin
Hindi ko alam.
Okay.
Mga luminaries, luminaries alumni. And basically, mga sina Marlon, sina Lay, sino pa? Marami. Basta luminaries na alumni. At palagay ko,
sina Eboy Paez, ganyan.
Sina Eboy Paez. Hindi pa natin, guess naman namin si Eboy. Hindi pa So ikaw nga, among our
Minsan nakikita namin si Eboy sa mga LS gathering.
Oo. Tagahanga niya po rin ako. So.
Si Devi ay kasalukuyang profesora profesora talaga ng English.
I'm in tita mode today, but yes, / profesora mode, yes.
At she was part of Tangalang Ateneo. Wala akong masyadong alam sa professional life ni Devi kasi kaibigan ko siya.
What does that make you as my friend that you don't know my professional life? Sa English department po ako ng Loyola Schools.
Alam ko rin na siya ay faculty association or faculty club officer or president.
Yes,
okay?
Yes.
Kasi
No. I'm not the president. I'm
chair.
I'm the outgoing school forum chair. Ngayon po ang botohan namin ng bagong school forum chair. Kung yung mga nakikinig sa atin mula sa LS, sana po bumoto kayo. Ikaw ba, Jovi, bumoto ka na? Sana nakaboto na.
Hindi ko binoto si Ariel. Joke.
Tapos, ano po ako, kasama po ako ng Loyola Schools Faculty Association ng Ateneo. Secretary po ako doon.
Ako ay nasa high school kaya hindi ko alam itong mga kaganapan.
Yes.
Pero kahit nasa high school ako, yung nakikita ko sa mga documentation, si Devi going places Going places.
Devi MA in what field?
Nakikita ko siya ang host, parang...
my MA, I have
visible.
Tinatanong ni Jovi ano daw ang MA ko.
In fact, yung ang pag-usap. Ano ba?
I have an MA in English Language and Literature Teaching from Ateneo. Tapos currently po akong PhD. Wag na lang natin pag-usapan 'yon kasi mahaba-habang usapan.
Gusto ko rin batiin gusto rin batiin si Gerard Paez, si Eboy Paez na nanonood ngayon. At nag-comment na sa atin, Eboy, kumpare, kumare ko rin po si Devi.
Yes. Very supportive yan. Very supportive.
The alluminary na mailat. Okay? So, kumusta, Eboy? Shout out din sa aking inaanak na si Max, na grade 12 na rin. And na Max Paez at ganun din kay Sebi na nasa Japan ngayon, diba?
Nasa Japan siya ngayon sa Tokyo, ang aking panganay. Yes, oo.
Yeah,
na nakapag-second dose na ng kanyang vaccine. So, mabuti na lang. Umabot doon.
Ano lang po itong aming programa ngayon ay tsatsagain naming bigyan ng direksyon. Kami po yung magkakaibigan na nagmamahalan, kaya minsan kung saan sa makaliwa kami
Oo,
usapan.
pasensya na
Pero
po
kung
kayo.
mabalik ako dun sa MA na sinabi ni Miss Devi, nabalitaan ko ng MA mo ay you were, part of it was studying, or it's a case study of a teacher teaching English in Filipino.
Yes. That
So,
was
parang-
hanggang ngayon, malapit pa rin sa akin ang aking MA thesis on using Filipino to teach English.
Imagine that.
Yes.
So napakalaking school of thought niyan na parang bagong-bago na matagal na iniiwasan namin. Kung magtuturo ka ng princess, magsalita ka ng princess. Kung magtuturo ka ng Pilipino, magsalita ka ng Pilipino. Magtuturo ka ng English, magsalita ka ng English.
Right.
But ako mismo, sa karanasan ko, parang maraming beses na akong nang daya. kasi minsan para magturo ng Pilipino, ay lalo na sa mga expats at sa mga hindi marunong mag-Filipino, I really catch myself having to meet them first in the English language. Parang yun nga eh. So, interesting. But hindi po yan. May kinalaman dyan. Ang pag-usapan natin ngayon, at si Devi na ang aking hayaang mag-expound dito, ay itong isang kilusan na translanguaging. Translanguaging. Ang daming salita na may trans
Speaking of
ngayon.
Ariel.
Pero ay isa ibig sabihin.
Iba palang
Kung pwede ko
trans
bang...
yun.
Jovi.
Shoutout kay Ariel. Ay, kumati muna tayo sa lahat bago tayo magpatuloy sa ating gagawin ngayon. No? Miss Devi, ikaw na muna. Baka may gusto kang batiin.
Ay, nais ko pong batiin ang aking butihing partner in life and in love, si Eboy, na laging nakikinig tuwing may programa. Yes, si Attorney Eboy. May attorney talaga, si Eboy. Tapos ang aking mga kasamahan, ang aking mga kaibigan mula sa Loyola Schools, may mga ilan-ilan din na napakiusapan kong manood at makinig. So from the English department, sina Marian Perfecto, hello, good afternoon sa inyo. At siguro yung mga kasama din namin sa aming MA program, sana nanonood din sila.
Si Dean Jonathan.
Si Dean Jonathan nanonood ngayon. Hello, Jonathan. Good afternoon. I'm enjoying my third summer leave. Salamat po sa inyo.
At siyempre, gusto ko rin, is a very common friend namin ni David, ni Jovi. Gusto ko rin batiin ng happy birthday sa araw na ito. Ang mahal namin si Miss Trixie Dico.
Yes, hello Trixie. Okay. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, my goodness,
Trixie.
At siyempre, bukas tayo, Sir Jovi, ang ating mentor, kung hindi isa sa ating mga mentor, kung hindi man the mentor of our lives, ay si Dr. Abad, the birthday bukas.
Happy birthday, Ricky!
Happy birthday. Okay. Mabuhay ang mga
si Ricky.
Pisces ba?
Pisces, ang layo na natin sa Pisces.
Ay, hindi ba?
Sino bang astrologer sa atin? Basta ang Pisces, pagkatapos na ng April. Agosto
anyway,
na po ngayon.
Tayo ay...
Virgo yata, Virgo.
So, ang yun nga po, isa sa mga very excited ako sa pag-uusapan natin ngayon. Kasi nga, ang dami ring tanong sa akin na nagpapanggap akong hindi ko tinatanong. Kasi either sensitive siya o kaya nakakalito lalo o kaya natatakot akong magbuklat ng isang bagay na ayaw ko namang itaguyod kapag naintindihan ko na. So, lately, nagkausap kami ni Devi, una sa social media, pagkatapos nagtawagan kami. Dahil inungkat niya isang bagay naman na-enkwentro ko na pero wala pang pangalan noon pa. At ito ay yung tinatawag na, siya sa kanya galing itong pangalang to, translanguaging. Okay? Or I think that is the practice.
Hindi nang galing sa akin ang term na yan, ha?
Hindi galing. Pero alam ko kay Ofelia
Garcia, among the many research language scholars who have been pursuing this field.
Tapos and then yung language as a social practice, which is a different outlook, no? Na lalo kami mga taga basic education ay nahirapan kami internalize yan kasi ang hawak namin ay mga bata at paano kaya gagawin yon? Social practice, wala pa silang practice of the language. Yan ang tingin namin. No? But yun nga, Devi, pwede mo bang bigyan kami ng pahapyaw na overview ng translanguaging? Ano talaga pinaka-sinasabi mo? Na parang medyo sariwa o kumbaga kakaiba sa kilala natin pagdulog sa wika. Ang alam natin ay magturo ng conventions at bantayan sila at barkahan sila at magbigay ng coaching sa kanila. Okay? So ito naman, itong translanguaging, ang premise yata nito, multilinguals ang yung mga
Magno-notes ako ha, magno-notes. Kasi nagtuturo ako ng ng philosophy sa
Philosophy.
Oo. Naku, where do I begin? Pwede na ba? Where do I begin, Ron?
I think multilinguals.
I think kung pwede kong ikwento yung konteksto ng topic na ito, it really began with my comment on Ron's comment on certain personalities and using social media para mahikayat na gamitin ang Filipino today in more explicit, deliberate ways, no? And yung comment ni Ron na parang kailangan pang pag-isipan ano ang Filipino, yung proseso ng yung term na yon, doon ako na trigger. If we will use the Gen Z term, doon ako na trigger yung sabi ni Ron na kailangan may pagpipino, which I also naman thought of as the process of using a language na base sa standards or base sa kanyang appropriate uses perhaps in academic contexts. At doon nagsimula nga ang aming diskusyon ni Ron na so paano ba tinuturo yan kung gano'n na may kailangang mga academic goals or objectives or prescribed standards in our curriculum pag sinasabi natin na gamitin ang lahat ng linguistic resources, which is what translanguaging is. You and I, in this kind of context right now, tayo na nakikipag-tagisan ng ating mga insights or contributing ideas as we speak at this moment, we are engaged in translingual practice, which is really using all of our linguistic resources. Kasama na doon yung mga references natin, yung ating mga shared experiences for the purpose of more engaging and more interactive communication. So yun ang objective ng pag-acknowledge ng translingual practice or ng process of translanguaging. It's really for more effective, more harmonious, more engaging, and even more just communication practices. Gaya nga na sinabi ko sa iyo, Ron, na tayo lang mga multilinguals in this small community and even our crew, yung mga nakikinig sa atin, lahat tayo, we have a minimum of 2 languages at our disposal, and that would be English or the kind of Filipino or the kind of English we know. And many perhaps may karagdagang wika pa, yung additional languages, yes, ng kanilang mga probinsya, ng kanilang kinalakihan.
Diba?
Ikaw, Ron, oo. Ano ba ang
Ilocano ko Pampangan Bicol na nasasama ko minsan pag di ko nababantayan.
Ang ganda, ang
ganda.
ganda. So,
yeah.
As multilinguals, kasama yun ang ating language systems. Hindi natin napipigilan unless talagang may deliberate awareness na, magi-English lang ako. And that is how we grew. I was telling Ron, ganun yung ating kinalakhan na education system, the purity, the keeping the languages separate. So, yung tinatawag dati na English-only policy na binuwag na ng MTB-MLE policy or the mother tongue-based multilingual education na inimplement nung 2009 and now they're still studying it at muntik nang natenga na naman at i-abrogate at buti na lang hindi. It's really acknowledging the many linguistic resources of our students that they
can... ganito, Devi, nung araw, kung nasa klase ng English, dapat English lang.
Oo. Tapos, di ba meron pa ng mga language monitor, yung pag nagsalita ka ng Filipino, meron kang language monitor ka, Jovi.
English campaign, tapos magbabayad ka kapag parang kang nagmura ka or nagtagalog ka. Magbabayad ka ng piso, ganyan. So,
according to the UNESCO, human rights violation yan. As early as 1953, ine-espouse na ng UN ang paggamit ng mother tongues or local languages or yung kinagisnan ng bata from the very early years sa bahay, and what is considered to be their communication for thought and ideas,
Yes.
expressing emotions, yun ang kanilang home languages.
Bali
Now,
ngayon, hindi na ganyan. Hindi na, kung kunyari, kung pinanganak kang ano ba ta? Cebuano, Ilocano, o Aklanon, hindi mo natuturo ng English o Filipino.
Oo. So the mother tongue based multilingual education espouses na you begin where the students are, you begin where the children are. So imagine itong estudyante na to, all his life, 'di ba? Ivatan ang usap nila sa bahay, tapos biglang pagturo ng weather ng pagdasal biglang in English kaagad kasi yun yung prescribed. Lost talaga yung bata. Conceptual, hindi na niya maintindihan, tapos yung medium of instruction ganun din. Now, there's a certain the challenge in our education system na parang pa rin yung resistant kasi there are many educational stakeholders or people who are influential, who make the decisions in education systems na resistant to the fact that English is a mother tongue in many households. Diba? So, if i-flip side natin, Ron, kasi buwan ng wika, diba? Buwan ng wika. So, in the same way na kami sa English department or many communities of English language teachers espouse the use of mother tongues as a bridge, as a strategic scaffolding tool, yung dahan-dahan mong binibuild yung confidence ng bata na magsalita at gamitin ang wikang Ingles using their mother tongues. I-flip side natin yon, tayong nasa Ateneo, for example, where a majority of students have English as their mother tongues at home. And that has to be acknowledged. Diba? So, ito ang kanilang linguistic resources na marunong silang mag-Filipino, what we call perhaps yung distinction nun, yung BICS, yung Basic Interpersonal Communication Skills in Filipino. Kayang-kaya nila makipag-basketball, makipag-tawanan pag nag-game sila, makipag-joke time sa mga barkada nila sa CAF, chismisan sa CAF. Ginagawa nila yan lahat sa Filipino na alam nila. Diba? Pagdating sa classroom, what we teach as teachers is CALP or Cognitive Academic Language Proficiency. Yung wika na kailangan nilang gamitin for exams, for reports, for formal presentations. Iba yung Filipino nun, di ba? Yung academic register sa pang-araw-araw na Filipino.
Yes.
Di ba? So, pag ina-assume natin na yung kanilang way of, yung kanilang pamamaraan ng pagsalita ng Filipino is in one register only, in that academic register, parang malaking assumption yon. Diba? So,
kaya nata-turn off sila.
Yes.
In fact, literally nagko-close nagsasara yung isip nila.
Yes, parang ang lalim. In the same way na ang lalim, ang nosebleed in English, ang lalim ng Filipino ni sir, hindi ko kaya, nakakahiya. Kasi
naman, Devi, palagi ko, habang pinapaliwanag mo yan ngayon, nakikita ko na parang may dalawang silbi ng language na umiiral sa statement mo. One is language as what you use to communicate.
Right.
And the other one is like it's a topic, an end goal, like a skill, parang end, parang project. Gusto niya yan. Parang ganun. So, yung style ng language. Pero, kumbaga, one is the means and the other end. Parang ganun. Wala mang distinction yung dalawang yon. I hear you now that you're saying sana gamitin natin yung kanilang lingua franca o yung kanilang ginagamit para umaral ng bagong wika. Yung wika nga aralin sa dulo. Hindi ba yun isang strictong sistema? What are your thoughts on this?
Teka muna, hello daw sabi ni Marian. Marian.
Oh yeah, Marian Perfecto.
Yes.
At saka si Divine De Leon. Hindi ko siya kilala pero baka may kilala sa inyo. At salamat sa pagtangkilik sa amin dito. Okay.
So yung tanong mo,
Ron,
yung
tinatanong ko, parang may dalawang... Yeah.
Are
Yeah,
there,
sige.
paano yung mga strict standards, 'di ba? Yun tama ba yung pagkarinig ko? Paano na ngayon yung mga anong tawag dito? Very
hindi naman
distinct
strict standards. Parang
paano na ngayon ang grammar
Yeah. Kumbaga, parang sinasabi natin yung sunduin natin kung nasaan sila sa kanilang wika, and do we just cultivate yung ginagamit nilang wika, or do we lead them to a particular system? Yun ang parang tanong ko. Kasi parang sabi ko, what is the means? And
end goal.
Right.
Yung isa means, yung isa goal. Pareho ba na dapat translanguaging yung end goal? Paano ba? Yun lang pinaka...
So, intindihin pa rin natin na meron pa rin tayong academic objectives, di ba? Na kailangan makapagsulat sila ng maayos na sanaysay, o kailangan magamit nila ang naaangkop na Filipino for an oral presentation or a group skit or something like that. The academic tasks will still require, dinidemand pa rin na gamitin ang wikang angkop sa Filipino, di ba? Pero, so yun ang end goal, di ba? Yun ang goal mo. How do you get there though? So, kung isasabak mo na agad yung grade 1 o grade 2 na bata na all his life in Cebu, Cebuano o English yung preferred languages, even as he, for example, is transplanted in Manila, talagang lost yung bata. Di ba?
Kung magfo-focus sa grammar.
Yes.
spelling.
So, translanguaging doesn't focus on language at all. It focuses on communication. How do I communicate?
So what is that the distinction, Devi? So it doesn't focus, kasi talagang ano yan, Sir Ron, yung panahon na, no? Buwan ng wika. Hindi pa na wika ang pinag-uusapan na ngayon sa pagtuturo ng wika.
Right. Hindi wika as a system, but yun nga, yung paghubog natin sa wika as a social practice, dahil ginagamit ko to dahil nagbabago ang wika, dahil nagbabago tayo bilang mga kasama sa isang komunidad, bilang kasapi sa isang pamilya, bilang consumer ng mga social media content, di ba? Kailangan yung kung ano yung naririnig ng bata sana sa labas ng classroom, may kahulugan sa loob ng classroom as tools for more effective language teaching, whether in Filipino or in English.
Mas mahalaga na nagkakaintindihan kayo
tapos,
at saka sila, no?
Oo. Sana maganda rin yung namamodel nung bata, namamodel nung teacher sa bata na I have language choices. I have a linguistic repertoire na I can navigate according to the context. Mahalaga talaga yung konteksto. So kung gusto kong makita ako ng... So ano ba ang objective mo rin as teacher? Diba? You have to teach this language effectively. At ang ano ko ngayon, ang context ko ngayon, sinong mga nakikinig sa atin, or sino ang nai-imagine ko na audience, yung mga magulang or mga teachers na natatakot na baka pag sobra ko namang English sa Filipino class, hindi na sila matutong maging competent, proficient speakers and users of Filipino. Hindi Kasi ang hirap to explain it, and I'm stepping out of my scholar mode, but really as an everyday multilingual, yun, hindi ko alam kung paano ko nagagawa yun na I seamlessly move from one language to another.
Kaya siya
para
language.
Yes. And it's not languages in opposition, or sa 30 minutes na ito, English lang, tapos sa 30 minutes na ito, Filipino lang.
Yes.
But because I am confident in both
Ron,
languages.
lumaki pa kami nun sa panahon nila Rolando Tinio, nila Father Ferriol.
Na ang ganda mag-Filipino.
Na magaling sa English at magaling sa Filipino. So parang ibang-iba na yata.
Bago tayo dumabo dyan, parang feeling ko, kailangan pa rin nating itangi yung pinakaunang tanong ko. Si Father Ferios ay komportable sa kanyang pag-Filipino. At ang palagay ko yun ang ina-advocate din naman ni Devi. Si Rolando Tino ay sarap na sarap sa kanyang pag-Filipino. Personal, at hindi naman yun tinatanggihan ni Devi. Ang punto ko nga, kanina, yun pa rin ang tanong ko, no? Nakikiintindihan ko, language as communication and language as a skill, a system goal. Parang something you want to learn. Like when I want to learn Korean, do I want to be, they will start with, alam ko na, kumbaga, yung language as a means to learn something and language as the topic to be learned. So nakikita ko, malinaw na yung language to learn something ay talaga nga dapat yung multilingual mother tongue, lahat na yan, pinag-usapan natin. Pero dun sa gusto nating maabot na particular skill, expertise, ganyan ba natin bawa? Pwede bang yun ang maging end ng ganitong klaseng pagtuturo?
But why? Why would why would you want that goal as language as expertise? Because you're not teaching students to be experts in language. You're teaching them to be members of a certain community, to move in a community that has to negotiate diversity. And
context yata nito is pag sinabi mo, you're not a master in the language. I-identify mo na siya as somebody who is disabled. Parang sinabi mo na meron siyang disability.
Yeah.
So parang nawawala siya minsan ng agency, no? Ng kapangyarihan to do things in that society where the language is not
So when is a non-Filipino speaker able to speak Filipino then? Kumbaga, ibig sabihin, kasi di ba, yun nga, sabi ko nga, it's an end. Kung masana ba siya sa Filipino o hindi. This whole thing. Do we merge English and Filipino then? Because there shouldn't be any distinction. So
you go back to again the objective, which is language for meaning making. May kahulugan ba? May saysay ba yung sinasabi ng bata? In the same way that in English, for example, pwede akong magsabi na alam ko lahat ng rules ng direct and indirect object or panghali, pandiwa, and all those things. Pero how do I apply that in very authentic ways? In teaching goals, in teaching panghali, pandiwa, and so on, am I allowing my students to engage in a world that acknowledges, privileges Filipino with confidence, di ba? So yung goal mo na dapat alam nila ang tamang grammar, to what end? Para saan? Dapat alam nila ang tamang, even yung tama na pagbigkas. That's very subjective also in this day and age of diversity.
Siguro magtatanong ako kay Sir Ron. Sir Ron, how do you feel about all these things? Dahil ikaw ang nagtuturo ng Filipino. Ano ang
actually, nag-uusap kami ni Devi at sabi ko nga, I might be talking to her like I'm on the other side because I'm in the basic education. But generally, Sir Jovi, na matagal ko na i-intuit yan. Matagal ko na babanag yan. Teach expats. Yung sinasabi ni Devi para mas engaging. Meron akong session na nag-Filipino ako stricto sa klase. Tapos kahit ang galing ko mag-Filipino, pero kahit anong galing ko,
ikaw lang ang nagalingan sa sarili mo.
Kailangan mag-switch. So, ibig sabihin, exactly.
Kasi wala silang naintindihan. Sorry. No, naranasan ko na rin.
Kailangan ko mag-English din. Makikita mo sa mukha nga nila.
Yeah.
Yung nga, sabi, engaging and just. Yung sinabi mo kayong definition. So, I get it really, no?
Yeah.
So, what is the way to go? Do we, the term is succumb? Or do we succumb to that? Or do we stay?
The discomfort in the theory is you don't know where the language education should go. Whether it's maging matatas sila sa Pilipino o paano sila magiging
ang discomfort ko doon, it's like it seems to be na hindi language ang kailangang aralin para matutong makipag-usap. Yun ang lumalabas ngayon. Kasi kala namin nagtuturo kami ng language, siguro English and Filipino teachers. Nagtuturo kami ng language to empower to equip students in communication. Pero ang tinatanong ngayon ni Devi, really, but what are we teaching? Isn't that debilitating, or isn't that
when we think of language as structures and grammatical systems and vocabulary lists and all of that, we're looking at language as a parang inanimate, objective, impartial system, which isn't, diba? At tayo bilang gumagamit ng wika araw-araw at nagbabago ang ating mga karanasan, ang ating mga interactions and exchanges, we actually really change the way languages are used every single day, even in social media, and you cannot resist that, diba? Yung hanggang ngayon naano pa rin ako na I'm amused when I hear the word papa. Kasi para sa akin, ang papa ko yung aking father. Pero ngayon talagang when people use it in, or it can be Pope Francis, but it can also be your jowa, di ba? Or a hot daddy and all that, di ba? So yung I am aware that there are different meanings to certain terms and expressions na hindi ko pwedeng talagang ikahon ang isang term just because it's how I use it. I have to be open to how my students use that certain term, how they use certain expressions, even intonation and
So parang misuse is used.
So what do we teach especially in basic what do we teach them? What do we teach in Filipino? What do we teach in English? Or should Filipino and English even exist as subject areas?
So in translanguaging, that really, if you might find it subversive, the subversive thinking is that even the terms itself, kasi di ba yung you will now interrogate, but what is English at kaninong English, kaninong Filipino? If we go by our constitution, di ba, Filipino is a synthesis of all languages in the Philippines.
Or
diba?
There's such a thing as Ateneo English.
There's also a thing as Ateneo English.
There's such a thing as Lasal English, which
yes,
is not English.
Oo. So ang dami niyang varieties and registers and languages. Yun nga, practice in a community of shared experiences of kindred spirits, like-minded or not like-minded people, and so on and so forth. It can also be very political and hierarchical. Languages can be political and hierarchical according to their users also, but not according to the language itself. Yung walang beautiful language or ang ganda ng ganito, nagiging maganda or nagiging inferior because of the attitudes of people towards it. Diba? Yung pag sinasabi, bakit natin sinasabi ang cute ng ang Spanish accent niya is so romantic, di ba? It's the person speaking it. Pero pinagtatawanan natin yung makapal ang Bisaya accent. Bakit? Di ba? So, it's because we associate certain personalities, certain cultures that we might find or we might put in a hierarchy as inferior, superior, and so on. As low culture, high culture, which shouldn't be, because that's it's a construct.
Si Devi hindi naman yata assumptionista.
Hindi ako assumptionista, pero love ako ng mga assumptionista.
But this is really very
Hello, Michelle! Michelle is my good friend who's from Assumption. Yes. No, Michelle Paterno.
Michelle Paterno. Yeah. Assumption.
Ang aming native speaker in the English department.
Tulad ng parang shouldn't you start with studying an abstraction first? Abstraction, I call it abstraction kasi it's not reality. The way you study economics, the way you study statistics, the way you study math.
Siguro.
But at the same time, when you start with that, then when you, kumbaga yun nga, ibig sabihin, baka yun din. Kasi nga, ang sinasabi ngayon ng translanguaging, may nangyayaring wika, yun yung atin mo. Parang, pero that is a route na pwedeng malinaw sa akin kung at the same time, there's also a route.
So kung sagutin yung sinasabi ni Ron, sige.
Ano yung mga
ating discussion?
Ano ba yung tanong ni Ron?
So what do you teach, diba? Or how do we teach language? Shouldn't you begin with an abstract system?
Ano ba yung mga objections na naririnig lagi ni Devi to this idea?
Yun nga, it's really, aren't we diluting the purity of the languages? Are we producing students who are half-baked? Diba? Yung hindi alam ang English, hindi rin alam ang Filipino kasi pinaghahalo-halo. And that's really looking at languages as separate systems. Tayo lang mga multilinguals ang nakakaintindi how we can seamlessly, automatically, readily move, papalit-palit from one sensibility of language to the other because that's our entire system. Okay? Now, to answer Ron's question, siguro kung mag-MA tayo, maganda nga magsusuryan na mag-abstract system as language.
Yeah.
To make it more...
Di ba parang mas MA ang translanguaging at yung abstraction? We just call it abstraction, but isn't that the simpler one? Because the systems are more consistent, mas predictable. And
so di ba, there are ways of learning and acquiring a language. When you say language learning, it's the formal systems. It's really in school, teaching grammar and the vocabulary and the meanings. Diba? Language learning yon. Yung bibigyan ka ng test, bibigyan ka ng mga formative assessment. Language learning yon. There is also language acquisition when the student is, or the user of the language is around a community of practice that uses the language in the most authentic ways that the student would know how, with the teacher modeling that. Diba? So perhaps our listeners, those in our young teachers, perhaps alam nila yung communicative language teaching, yung using language to communicate, and then they will think of authentic ways of demonstrating proficiency. Dati sa grade school, meron pa yung mga dialogue, di ba? Yung ating mga scripted, how are you? I'm fine, thank you. What about you? What did you do last night? For example, apply past, present, participle, or the subjunctive and so on. Pero kino-question na rin natin yun kasi ganun ba tayo talaga? Right now, I'm going to use the past participle in this conversation at kailangang matandaan ko tong spiel na to. Ganun ba tayo? Hindi rin di ba? Hindi rin naman tayo elocution manner of using the language.
Huwag na magkaroon.
Si Ron choppy, hindi ko maintindihan.
Ron, you're choppy.
Pero, hello? Okay na ba?
Oo, sige. Please repeat. Naintindihan mo, Jovi.
So, Devi, how far are we? Are we able to convince?
I think, oo. I think what Ron was...
Nagagaling yung resistance.
Yeah, because nga yung nakalaka na...
No, they are the resistance. Ano saan galing ang resistance? Sila ngayon mali yan, di ba? Parang... But what I mean is, di ba parang may business writing? Merong business writing, merong writing for formal.
Right.
Are we also encouraged to rethink those areas?
No.
To redefine them or lose them?
No. You will still have to, you will have tasks like that in school na you are writing to your principal for an interview, you are asking for solicitation for your organization. Those are really certain authentic contexts na talagang kakailanganin ng mga bata o kailangan mo magsulat ng incident report. Di ba? Paano mo yan gagawin?
Pati yung mga incident report na yan, di ba dapat i-honor na rin ang translanguaging? Bakit kasi...
Yes, okay. So, my take there is, and this is what I am researching now, yung drafting, allowing the drafting process to be, to accommodate the translanguaging practices of the students. And I've learned that recently. I've done that recently, especially now in this online system na everything we do is online, na writing, na ang hirap na ganito na dati papasok yung bata sa department, magko-consultation, mag-uusap kayo kaagad, di ba? And before, I would model how it is to give consultation or give constructive feedback, modeling appropriate language and so on. But this time with the screen in front of us, inaano ko na yan, nire-rethink ko na yan na paano ba ako mag-come across na talagang gusto kong tumulong, na naririnig ko or naiintindihan ko yung struggles nila writing this essay. So I've begun to write, for example, my comments in translingual mode. Bakit ganito ka nag-start? Pwede ba siguro pag-isipan mo yung introduction mo in the way that I would speak it? Diba? And what is my purpose there? It's really to make a connection with the student, to know that I understand your struggle. Diba? I can see your effort and I know that you're having a challenging time communicating your ideas. Kasi pag gawin ko yon, napansin ko, pag gawin ko yan in English, why are you starting this way? They will hear my voice, perhaps, in a way that is critical or intimidating, diba? Pero pag nakita nila, ay si ma'am, diba, yung salita niya natural, yung hindi nakakatakot sa tenga, hindi nakakatakot sa akin.
We are judged by the kind of English we speak.
Also, diba? And so
Filipino.
More and more, I make that more deliberate, more explicit in my canvas design, in my module design, in writing, as I am speaking, in the way that I introduce myself in class, na I can model the two languages so that I can establish more personable rapport with my students para hindi sila matakot, para hindi na madagdagan yung stress nila,
Devi, no?
diba?
I think it's more usual for a philosophy teacher who teaches in Filipino na mag-Taglish siya. Kesa yung philo teacher na nagtuturo sa English na magtataglish. Parang mas nagugulat yung estudyante. Kaya ako Filipino lang yung...
Pero ako naman, yung pinag-usapan ni Devi, na meron pa rin ako nakikitang dichotomy ng language, yung and at saka yung means. Yung sinasabi mo na to reach out to them, ay means pa rin yun. Pero yung end in mind, yung skill, bago siya gumraduate sa'yo, ano yung papabaon natin? Do we just give them a semester or a grading period of just experiencing language, or we really wanted them to get to a goal or to get to a particular skill?
Sabay kayo nagsalita, hindi ko alam kung kanino ako makikinig.
Gali talaga yan ni Jovi.
Pareho lang kami na sinasabi.
Yun ang sinasabi ko.
Kailangan natin ng part 2 ng episode na ito.
Kasi I get it kasi Devi's talking of the same thing na wala na akong question about. Kumbaga, in achieving something, let us use translanguaging.
All their linguistic resources.
Yes, all their linguistic resources. Pero yung
available. As well as the teacher also. Teacher. Yeah. So, can I just say na the practice of translanguaging really also calls for a certain personality and a certain disposition na kasi kung ang hirap din for all your life, halimbawa, ang tingin mo talaga sa languages is separate systems na Filipino, teacher ako sa Filipino, purong-puro and gano'n. Hindi naman yan magbabago overnight. Pero iisipin din natin yung how am I outside the classroom? 'Di ba? Ano yung aking movements around the class? How do I engage with my ka-department
diba?
or
yung mga nag-i-English sa
kasama
sa SM, di ba?
Ang sakit sa bangs na isang register lang.
Nasa gas station nag-i-English. Hello.
Diba? All this or yung sinasabi nating malalim at madibdib na Filipino, 'di ba? Yung hindi ka naman one register magsalita. So paano ka makakatawid na mahikayat yung mga bata na hanapin na kanilang mga boses in Filipino when they don't often do that, perhaps because their experiences don't call for that at home or in school or with their friends. Paano mo sila mahihikayat to look at Filipino in a way that is stimulating, in a way that's engaging and relevant to their everyday practices? I have to model that. Diba? I have to show, I can show them I'm making these decisions. It's not default.
Pero
Kaya
alam
ko.
mo, Devi, sinuggest ko yan sa isang Filipino teacher para pinandilatan ako.
Oo, kasi nga, so I was saying a while ago, yung it calls for a certain disposition towards languages as a whole a whole experience, a whole practice. They're not, the multilingual will understand na hindi hiwa-hiwalay. Yung parang pag-iisipin mo rin yung pananalangin, pagkanta.
Meron nagsabi, nakita mo Sir Ron?
Ay, saan? Ano ba?
Interesting talk, may part 2 ba? Listening here in Bacolod City, Manuel Radislao. Maraming salamat.
Salamat,
sabi ni Gerard Paez.
Ang galing ng translanguaging. Kasi ang gusto ko talaga, kahit sa show natin ito na 1 oras lang nakulang.
Anong mother language ng Paez household?
Dabawenyo siya.
Hindi. Alam mo, ganyan. Yan din. Ano ba ang nauna? Yung Filipino ba o yung English? Hindi ko masasabi sa inyo. Pero buhay na buhay yung dalawang wikang yon sa bahay namin. But I must say that my boys learned their ABCs in English. At nung tumungtong yung aking panganay sa grade 2, it was a Filipino teacher who, itong paborito kong kwento, umuwi siya grade 2, si Sebastian. Mom, there's a Filipino word pala for mother. Ko, yes. It's nanay. Yes. Why didn't you tell me?
Why?
Mr. Baswell said, yung Filipino teacher niya ng grade 2, there's such a word pala for mother in Filipino. Why didn't you ever teach me? Di ako naman. Kasi mama. Yun din naman ang tawag ko sa nanay ko, mama. From now on, I want to call you nanay. Because Mr. Baswell is so cool. So yung association of the languages being cool because this teacher is so cool because the teacher, would teach them Pokemon characters, Pikachu and all that, and would know the latest dances in hip-hop and so on. Pero engage them in Filipino. So, laking pasasalamat ko. So, magmula nun, mas deliberate kami in allowing the languages to flow as they are.
Ito naman yung issue ko kasi...
So, nanay ako sa bahay. Tawag nila sa akin hanggang ngayon. Tatay siya.
Ang issue ko naman, why is it that Chinese is never taught properly in this country?
I don't know.
Ang mahal-mahal ng binabayad na sa matrikula. Pero... wala, hindi rin natuto mag-Chinese.
Yan, isa pa yan. Isa pa yang way of thinking na medyo kailangan nating pag-isipan. Ang mahal-mahal ng tuition, bakit hindi maayos yung pagturo ng Chinese o yung pagturo ng English? Tapos, bakit ang mahal-mahal ng tuition tapos Filipino lang?
Dapat translanguaging din yung...
Pwede rin. Meron din doon yung tinatawag na investment instead of motivation. We all know the theory of motivation as a way of encouraging students. What is their motivation to learn this? Meron din nagtawag si Bonnie Norton Pierce. Si Bonnie Norton, matagal na, 1997, yung investment theory naman niya. Iba naman yun sa motivation. Ano yung investment ng bata sa pagtuto ng wikang ito or an adult language learner, for example? Ano yung investment niya? Bakit niya kailangan? Kasi kung hindi siya marunong mag-Chinese, mawawala siya sa train station. Si Seb ngayon, kung hindi siya magaling mag-Japanese, walang magsasabi sa kanya kung saan siya kasi they don't speak English there. So, he's invested to speak in the language because it's part of his daily practice.
Kapag required lang, talagang the investment is less.
Pero
yung investment.
Tapos na yung show natin, parang gusto ko lang, baka may tanong lang ako na
baka mas lalo ako nakabulado.
Tanong din na iba na ikinig. Kasi Sir Jovi, nag-move on, hindi pa malinaw eh. Etong, halimbawa, ito lang, basic question. Sa basic education, how do you suggest we proceed in at least in incorporating translanguaging, if not yet adopting fully, incorporating translanguaging? I say basic education mula grade school, kasi parang ang translanguaging presupposes na meron ng sariling bokabularyo ang isang bata. Totoo naman. Pero ano ba yun? Paano ba mag-navigate from that? So basic. So, yun na. O alisin na ba yung subject? Hindi ko alam.
Hindi naman. Kailangan natin ang Filipino at ang mga mother tongues. Kailangan natin ng English. Unang-una.
As a goal? Yeah.
No, translanguaging is not a goal. It's a practice nga, diba? It's a practice. It's what we do as multilinguals, right?
Yes.
It can be used as a scaffolding tool, as a strategic scaffolding tool to teach a language explicitly or for the students to acquire a language more enjoyably or in a more engaged manner. Translanguaging looks at the interactive process of communication. Diba? I want my students to be proficient in Filipino or in Ivatan or in Hiligaynon or in English. I want them to be proficient. And what does proficiency mean? Ano ang objectives ng proficiency? Magsulat ng research paper, makapagsulat ng sulat sa kanilang mga magulang to assert their identities, diba? Or makapag-present ng angkop sa isang academic conference. Kailangan ding i-identify what does proficiency mean in academic contexts, di ba? Now, how do I do that effectively? Translanguaging practices, we acknowledge and employ all our linguistic resources that can allow us to navigate, negotiate the two, three, four languages with respect, without putting them in hierarchy.
So in a way, parang ang naintindihan ko dun sa pinadala ni Devi,
nagpadala ako ng
end goal is greater authenticity nung speaker. Parang the person is not afraid himself. Kasi kunyari, migrant siya, tapos di siya marunong mag-English, parang incapacitated siya. Actually,
mali rin, Devi, na sabihin na translanguaging is the strategy, but it is not the objective. O yun din ang objective?
Translanguaging is a practice nga. It can be used, it can be viewed as a strategy because you're aware. Pero, kasi ano siya, dynamic siya, unplanned. Di ba? Gumagalaw siya with the context. Dahil ito yung konteksto ko na yung classroom ko multilingual, nakikita kong inaantok na yung mga estudyante ko, hindi ako pwedeng mag-straight English or straight Filipino. Kailangan kong humugot ng kanilang maiintindihan. Kung hindi, walang saysay ang tinuturo ko.
And that forces the teacher also to be grounded in the practice of the language. No?
To be grounded in the student's context.
Kasi that's why I have to listen to what they listen to. I have to go to popular culture. Otherwise, I cannot speak their language.
It requires that disposition of the teacher that my context is not the student's context all the time. But we do have a shared context. So, ang ganda kung marinig nila na kaya at alam kong mag-navigate between these 2 or 3 languages as a way to build a community.
Ano talaga yun, playwriting ang kailangan ng train.
Ano? Very quickly na, wala na tayong oras. Marami ako nilistang handang tanong para kay Devi, but we just started with one question. At very quick lang, parang fast talk na lang, no? So, itong translanguaging, paano siya, how do these things figure in? Halimbawa, those who are espousing a particular way of speaking Filipino and English, so are they oppressive? Or are they,
are they espousing? There is no one way of speaking one language.
Yeah.
We do not speak, I've said this before, we do not speak in one single register all the time. Diba? Even in the ways that we speak Filipino or Tagalog or Bisaya or English, iba-iba talaga yan. Diba? So, yung tinatawag na purity of languages, medyo kailangan tayo mag-move on from there kasi I will argue there is no such thing as purity of languages unless you want to stay in frozen in a certain time and place, and that's impossible, diba? If for us language is to be used as a means to communicate and to build community, I have to be attentive to the multiculturalism and multilingualism and diversity in my class and even in wherever I speak. So yung
Devi,
mga nakikinig sa atin.
Beautiful, but we want to hear more from you on other topics, no? So baka masabi mo rin yan, learning the canons like Shakespeare, Balagtas, etc. How does translanguaging, how does that figure in how do those studying and learning
At ito ang natutunan ko sa Tanghalang Ateneo na pwede siyang iangkop sa panahon ngayon na mananatili ang language ni Shakespeare, ngunit yung ating manner of saying it, yung ating production design, yung ating konteksto, Richard the Third, di ba? Iba yung
hindi siya
naging
text, hindi lang siya, hindi siya yung text. Fidelity to performance.
So your images, your semiotic, yung symbols, it's just a fancy way of saying symbols, yung ating mga metaphors and images, nag-iiba. Pwedeng manatili yung language, pero sa totoo lang, di ba, kaya natutulog yung mga bata kasi hindi ako makahugot dun sa language itself. Pero kung titignan niya yung kabuuan na ginawa si Richard III in the context of this kind of political climate in the Philippines, naintindihan
You're referring
ko.
to Ardy III, no?
Yes.
What about creative writing where there's premium on word choice, word curation? So yun nga, what about translanguaging? Hindi naman dinidiscourage yun ng translanguaging kasi
not at all.
Translanguaging is so spontaneous and candid, di ba?
Yes. But you will see also new fiction today employing and deploying a multitude of references from the cultures where the writer is from, di ba?
Yes, oo nga.
Itong pagdiba ko at pagno and pag nilagay yon, it's really looking at language, yun, paulit-ulit ako, it's really looking at language as practice, as alive, as dynamic and changing all the time.
Paano na siya ginagawa?
Yes.
Yung mga Filipino crusaders naman na nagpi-Filipino to react to something because dati inapiraw ang Pilipino. Parang may ganun. They're trying to demonstrate how exquisite Filipino is, countering those who think low of Filipino language. Kasi alam mo, noong 80s at 90s, lalo na sa probinsya, ini-English speaking ang mga parents and ang mga bata, tsaka mga eskwelahan. Dahil, yun nga, may sabi, ng pangkasambahay yan, pang driver yan, may mga ganun pang pananaw dati. And so there's a advocacy and crusade to fight this way of looking at Filipino, and then somehow sila na rin ang naging stricto. Sila naman napako. Pero paano ba? What's your comment on that?
It wouldn't have to do with the language, but with the attitude also. In any enterprise, in any advocacy, di ba? Pag nang-aaway ka, mas lalong mahirap to convince people to join your cause. Di ba? Siguro dun tayo humihina kung if we look at it as opposition and competition, di ba? Pero kung yun nga, yung way mo of languaging, I use the term, if your way of languaging is always to welcome and to include and to encourage, di ba? Ang okay si Sir or okay si Mama, yung okay siya, yung marunong siyang makigalaw with us, yung, di ba, mas nakikikayat yung mga bata. So yung exquisiteness of the language also harkens to a certain view of, again, the hierarchies of language. Dati nilagay nyo kami sa baba, ngayon naman kami yung dapat nasa taas. So,
yan
hindi ba pwedeng...
Ni Rizal, no? Ano nga yung sinabi ni Rizal, Sir Ron? Yung the slaves of
marunong magbahal sa sarili niya?
Tomorrow.
Ano yun?
Why give freedom if the slaves of today will be the tyrants of tomorrow?
If there is, yung vindictive attitude na gano'n.
So lastly, or probably second to the last, parang mag-extend na tayo ng oras.
Inaagaw ba tayo na airtime?
Meron naman. But at the same time, yung mga hindi naman kumakalaban, alam ko merong nag-accommodate, na nag-communicate, but for those who speak a certain way, to model and provide another model, hindi siya nag-compete, no? Because there are so many models. But since marami ng ganito, marami ng ganyan, I do this para makita rin ng mga bata. That is kumbaga ang crusade niya another kind of unique way. Parang gano'n. Kaysa naman, how do you react to that? For example, Father Ferios, hindi naman niya sinasabing wag kayong, ganito kayo mag-Filipino. Pero may pag-Filipinong ganito na may halong Ilocano, na may ganyan. Na may halong Griego. May naman magsalita si Mr. Peregrino, si Mr. Pesigan, English teacher, nagtatagalog.
So, I try to outgrow that, yung part na yun kay Father, yung ini-impose yung language. Kasi pag in-impose ko yung language, lalo silang lumalayo eh.
Oo.
I give them an option kung ano yung wika nila sa klasiko. Pero yung wika ko, Filipino. English actually.
And I suppose, Ron, also with the use of the term crusade, it's a crusade. It's something that we gotta do, di ba? Yung pag may ganun kasi na will also mean imposition of some sort.
Yes.
Di ba? It's what we call gatekeeping also. Yung way of speaking or way of using language is a certain standard that you can reach only if you're like this. Diba? But in the everyday that we want our elementary students or basic ed students to wonder and relish and be curious about and be fascinated about the power of language and to interrogate the power of language that it can diminish also, na pwede siya manliit, pwede siya manlait, di ba? Then they will be more careful pag nanggagaling sa teacher na allows them to interrogate these things. Kasi hindi ini-impose na dapat ganito lang. Once na ganun tayo, kaagad, na dapat ganito lang. Di ba? Hard sell, turn off na siya sa bata.
Yung education kasi, when I say crusade, kasi may force na media, no? Na talagang hindi mo ma-curate. At gusto mo sana mag-counter. Kaya nga sabi ko, counter, by counter, not hostile countering, but just to balance it. Parang gano'n. How do you find that? In the trans languaging, is that valid? Is that a valid claim?
Yeah, so you cannot counter also social media practices. That will be a losing battle. And a battle that cannot be won because it's alive. Diba? Language is alive in social media and everywhere else. So, kailangan makipagsabayan tayo. Diba? Kailangan gamitin yung mga references, pwedeng gamitin yung mga references na yon for students to use as examples of what is exemplary writing or what is writing that can still be improved according to the contexts. Diba?
Last na lang.
Halimbawa, saan nagkamali si Harry Roque at Pinky Web.
Last na lang. Anong lugar ng ganito anong lugar ng individualities individualities kasi translanguaging hanggang ngayon 607 na ang nakikita ko parang nakikita ko is hinihingi ay jumoin ka pero wala bang aspeto yun ng I have my unique individual way of doing it,
right?
I lose it. Kasi baka hindi na maintindihan na nakikinig ngayon na parang isuko mo yung kasi may join, may it's alive, you have to join it, di ba? Parang ganyan. Social media, sumali ka na lang. Pero meron, so paano ba? Ano bang lugar ng individuality?
So again, Ron, yung tanong mong yan, still showing, and again, it will take a while to really practice or use that kind of or apply that kind of attitude. Yung tanong mo yan, yung individuality, it's still looking at languages as separate systems, di ba? It's tinitignan mo pa rin yung wika na para sa ganito, na oo naman, tama nga naman, na may registers and contexts of use. Di ba? Yeah. So, kung nakikita ko yung mga estudyante ko na in their chat messages, ganito ka sila mag-spell at ang dami nilang acronyms na hindi ko alam. Pero kung yun ang paraan nila, para makapag-set up sila ng group chat, ng study group, okay lang yun. At kung masulat man nila yon sa chat box during a synchronous session, okay din yon as long as I know that, they're engaged also. Paano ang individuality ko? Ganun talaga tayong lahat. We bring our individuality, our individual selves and unique selves into a classroom. The teacher who knows how to negotiate and take advantage of that is the teacher who is attentive, who really puts the students' contexts front and center. So, it's, yes, to a certain extent, it's relinquishing your role as the model of language expertise. If that's what your question is going
No,
towards.
not model, just another.
Yes, it's relinquishing my role as the only source of.
No, not the only source, as another source.
Yes, oo. Should I accommodate that? Yes. Yes.
Should I relinquish?
But only to empower the
Do,
students. To be their own. speak
To a
their
certain
sorry,
own.
extent, do I relinquish control? Yes.
I'm not talking about teachers, no? I'm also not talking about control. I'm just talking about isang nagsasalita ng Filipino na parang Bisaya. In a way, baka kala niya kailangan din yan sumali sa isang sistema na rin na organic. So must be or should he just be?
He should just be, right?
Okay, yeah.
He should just
Yeah.
be.
So that doesn't
And
apply to
he will stop being that way pag may tumawa sa accent niya.
Sabi
O pag,
ni Gerard. Ayun, no? Sabi ni Gerard.
guys, kailangan ng part 2 ito.
Yes. Actually, kailangan ng part 2 ito, mga kaibigan. Hihilingan namin, dalawang Lunes pa naman ng Agosto. Isa sa mga Lunes na yon, pangako namin kung saan namin mapapa-oo si Miss Devi.
Rod, pakibasa na lang yung sinabi ni Joshua Flores Olano.
Yeah. Sabi ni Joshua Flores Olano, salamat sa iyong pakikisa. No? Mag-Filipino din po ako sa pagtuturo ng filo. At ang dating po sa akin na maging mas tao at makatao sa pagtuturo. So it's beyond language.
Perhaps because the context is
Joshua, for participating.
perhaps because the context is yung speakers, yung users ng language siguro mas karamihan Filipino.
Kasama natin.
Yes, pero actually kahit hindi pa siya tapos, napakalayo na rin ng unat ng isip na naidulot ng ating pag-uusap.
Sana po.
Kasi lahat naman to ay mga pagtatangka at mga munting hakbang. Isang bagay na hindi natin pinapansin dati. Ngayon nga, sabi ko nga, it also takes courage to welcome things that will shake you. And really, lalo na kung ikaw mismo matagal na nagtatanong at nalilito. At bakit, at saka nabibigo. Yun din.
Right, yes.
May mga kabiguan din eh.
Tama.
So,
and if I must add also, we have obligation as teachers, as practitioners in the field, no matter philosophy or mathematics, or to engage in research, language as a tool for more effective practice in the classroom, diba? For more engaged learning. Kasi yung identities natin sa wika, hindi talaga natin mahihiwalay dun sa ating paggamit. So, in the same way as hinuhubog natin ang wika din ang humuhubog sa atin. Pero paanong paghuhubog yon? Diba? Makatarungan ba? Enjoy ba? Masarap ba?
okay, ito pong aming episode ngayon ay nanganak ng isa pang episode na which is more urgent than the original one.
Which goes to show, hindi na pala tayo nag-enjoy talaga sa TA, sa dressing room.
Pero ibig ko lang sabihin,
we've grown up, man. We've grown up.
Kailangan talaga. Kahit si Devi, of all people, sorry Devi, no? Of all people, kay Devi, it's so pleasantly surprised. Kasi Devi nagsasabi nito, siya sa nung college kami, si Devi ang tanod namin ni Eboy. Si Devi ang tanod namin ni Eboy sa aming mga English na. Tapos ngayon, suddenly, I'm hearing this very, very refreshing paradigm.
Inglesera po talaga ako dati. Inglesera po talaga
At stricto.
Ako po ang English tutor ni Ron tsaka ng aking asawang Eboy. Pero nagbago po ako dahil po in the spirit of Saint Ignatius, lahat po tayo pwedeng magbago.
Nagkaroon ng cannonball experience.
Ng cannonball experience, correct.
Yun po, maraming salamat po at di namin alam po anong nangyayari pagkatapos ng Lunes na ito, yung susunod na episode namin. Malamang sa hindi, si Miss Devi Paez ay makakasama natin, baka may iba pa sa aming susunod na isa pang episode. Kung hindi sa susunod na Lunes, baka yung susunod pang Lunes. Dito sa ating pagdiriwang ng buwan ng wika, dapat mga ganito pinag-uusapan namin. Para yung pagmamahal natin sa wika, maging mas totoo. Okay? Pagmamahal natin sa wika at pag-unawa natin sa wika, maging mas totoo. Kasi yun naman, buwan naman niya to eh. Sa pag-usapan natin. So muli, Miss Devi, baka may last pagpapaalam ka, last words.
Salamat sa masarap na usapan na ito. It's very close to my heart. Language use as also a practice in social justice and fairness for all para sa ating mga estudyante, para talagang mas enjoy, lalo na sa panahon na ito, mas enjoy nila yung pag-aaral.
Tama. Meron
Thank
pa
you
isa
very
doon,
much,
ah.
Devi. Maraming salamat.
Teresa Alcuaz, kilala niyo yan?
Yes, si
Yes,
Kuchi.
ate. Hi
Hello.
guys. Kaibigan namin si Kuchi. At ito rin yung
Alright.
episode dating to, no matter how incomplete.
Nagdidilim na po ang aking paligid.
Isa ito sa pinaka-i-share kong mga... Kasi ito ay pwede mapanood kahit pagkatapos ngayon. So it's shareable. Just to at least start the conversation in any
Baka
any
magulat
area.
yung mga members. Ganito pala ang TA. Yeah!
Ang sarap, ang sarap.
Salamat din.
Maraming salamat din po. At maraming
namin.
salamat sa inyong mga viewers and listeners. Maraming salamat po sa inyong pagiging bukas sa language as social practice.
Alright.
Thank you. Kay Jovi, salamat din. Nasa mo,
Salamat, Jovi. Salamat.
Salamat. Woo!
Meron? Ano nga ba ang meron? Paano nga bang mabuhay ng tapat sa meron? Don't you wish you can relive your philo classes? The terror teachers? The terrible oral exams? Or the even terrifying but liberating and life-changing aha moments? Lundagin mo, Beybeh! Here's your chance! Lundagin mo, Beybeh! Kasama ang mga pilosopong sina Jovi Miroy at Ron Capinding. Lundagin mo, Beybeh! Leaping upward, leaping forward. Lundagin mo, Beybeh! Leaping to greater heights, to greater wisdom, to greater magis. Lundag na, Ateneo! Radyo-katipunan. News, insights, inspiration. Radyo-katipunan. Down from the hill and down to the world. Radyo-katipunan. The voice of the Blue Eagle.
Radyo